It's good to see you again. May I?
Gus Fring isn't just a villain. He's a nightmare in a suit. He's the guy who could sell you chicken during the day and bury you in the desert at night. Breaking Bad gave us a lot of cold-blooded characters, but Gus, he's the top villain. Polite evil, sure, but evil nonetheless. You don't just fear him, you fear how much you respect him.
You can never trust a drug addict.
Let's face it, most villains crash onto the screen yelling threats, smashing stuff, and generally being obvious jerks. Not Gus. He's the type that sneaks up on you. You suspect that he's up to no good, but you can't help yourself from trusting him. And then suddenly, he reveals the monster in him. You can also say the most badass thing about him is he wears a suit all year in the heat of New Mexico, and he never breaks a sweat. Unlike Walter White, that seemed to be stressed out for most of the series.
No, listen! I have money!
Talking about Mr. White, there are a lot of similarities between him and Gus Fring. Both men are two sides of the same coin, geniuses in their fields who thrived on control and precision. Both started with humble beginnings, Walt as an underappreciated chemistry teacher, and Gus as a quiet fast food franchise owner. And both built empires through sheer intellect and ruthlessness. They were careful, calculating, and always 2 steps ahead of everyone else. Yet, both men were very different.
I don't think we're alike at all, Mr. White.
It was obvious from the very beginning that Gus was special. Before I get ahead of myself, let's go back to when we were introduced to Gustavo Fring in episode 11 of season 2.
Can I help you, sir?
Walter White and Jesse Pinkman are desperate to find a distributor for their blue crystal meth when Saul Goodman recommends they meet the Chicken Man. Odd name for a drug lord, but that is exactly what makes Gus unique. So there's Walter, sitting in Los Pollos Hermanos, a wholesome fast food joint, looking for a drug lord. And who shows up? A polite, well-dressed man ready to take his orders. There was no dramatic entrance, no scary soundtrack, just Gus casually blending into the background as if he's not running a multi-million-dollar drug empire on the side. If Walter White had any clue just how cold-blooded Gus Fring was, he probably would have stuck to selling his blue stuff out of an RV. But no. Walt was desperate. He needed someone with connections, resources, and a knack for keeping things under the radar. Also, Walter was a master manipulator. He did not mind doing business with dangerous individuals, because he was sure he could always outsmart them, just as he did with Emilio Koyama and Crazy 8, who were ruthless killers themselves. It didn't take long for Walt to realize he'd walked straight into the lion's den. Gus wasn't like other drug dealers Walter had handled and even killed. Gus was a mastermind who ruled with an iron fist and zero mercy. To appreciate this character better, you need to know what motivates him. Before he was the Chicken Man, Gus had a partner named Max. Max wasn't just his business buddy, he was family, the one person Gus trusted completely. Together, they tried pitching their drug business to the Mexican cartel. It was a big mistake.
Le pido disculpas si no ofendí.
That got Max killed. Hector Salamanca, the loose cannon of the cartel, shot Max right in front of Gus as a power move. Gus was forced to swallow his rage, but oh, he didn't forget. From that moment on, Gus wasn't just a drug lord in the making. He was a revenge machine, and Hector was his primary foe. His whole empire wasn't just about money or power. It was about dismantling the cartel piece by piece while making them think he was their best friend. Gus played the longest con, smiling at the people he planned to destroy. He didn't just want payback. Those who crossed him don't just get killed, they get wiped off the face of the earth. In the first episode of Season 3, we get to see Gus handle some terrifying villains when we are introduced to the Salamanca twins. These guys didn't just walk onto the screen, they crawled out of the underworld like something straight out of a nightmare, and boy did it leave us all scared. The scene starts with the Salamanca twins, Marco and Lionel, stepping out of their car like twin Terminators on a mission. Their mission was to kill Walter White in vengeance for the death of their cousin, Tuco Salamanca. These guys don't need dialogue to communicate their deadly intentions. These were no ordinary hitmen. They were hitmen with an almost supernatural presence. You just know that Walt stood no chance. Once these men get to Walt, it will be over. This is where Gus Fring, the mastermind with a plan for everything, comes in. Gus saw the cousins not as unstoppable forces, but as pieces on his chessboard. He cannot allow them to kill Walt.
Ya les había dicho, no van a matar a Walter White.
So, what did he do? He redirected their vengeance. Gus convinced the cousins that the real culprit behind Tuco's death was Hank Schrader, Walt's DEA agent brother-in-law. It wasn't entirely untrue. Hank did pull the trigger, but Gus's manipulation was all about protecting his interests. By pointing the cousins toward Hank, Gus bought himself time and kept his operation running smoothly. At the same time, he also made sure Hank got tipped about the danger so he could defend himself. Despite being outnumbered and outgunned, Hank managed to kill one cousin and critically injure the other, who later died in the hospital. It was the end of two of the most dreadful villains in the series. Despite the hate Walt has for Gus, he has no choice but to thank him for taking care of the twins and saving Hank's life too.
Thank you. Thank you again.
You're quite welcome, Mr. White.
Delivering the news of their deaths to their uncle Hector Salamanca was an absolute pleasure for Gus. But Gus was only warming up. His next target was another major player in the cartel he had sworn to take revenge on, Juan Bolsa. When Juan Bolsa first appears in Breaking Bad, he comes across as the cartel's smooth operator, a middle manager keeping the Salamanca chaos in check while maintaining order in the ranks. Trust me, it was not an easy job, not with Hector Salamanca, who wanted nothing more than the death of Gus. On the surface, his relationship with Gus Fring seems like a smart business arrangement. Bolsa recognized how important Gus was for the cartel, but he never realized Gus was using him. Initially, Gus plays the cooperative role, using Bolsa's influence to solidify his drug empire while expanding his operations behind the scenes. Partnership allows Gus to build his Los Pollos Hermanos disguise and secretly fund his industrial-scale super lab. However, Gus views Bolsa not as a partner, but as a hurdle.
I see things clear enough. One DEA gets shot, all of Washington starts barking.
Someone who ties him too closely to cartel rules and limits his freedom. To Gus, obstacles are never permanent. They're just problems waiting to be solved, and Gus's solutions are as subtle as they are ruthless. Bolsa would have to die. Gus tips off the DEA about Bolsa's location. What follows is a dramatic raid, bullets flying, and Bolsa meeting his end at the hands of federal agents. It's a clean elimination, no blood on Gus's hands, just a powerful rival erased from the playing field. In one move, Gus destabilizes the cartel leadership, removes a major threat to his ambitions, and clears a path to gain more power. So, here's the thing about Gus Fring. If he offers you a partnership, it's probably not because he likes you.
Por favor, pasen. Siento que no sea accesible hacia.
He's already 10 steps ahead, calculating exactly when and how you'll be removed from his path. But he was not done. His next target was the boss of all bosses in the cartel, Don Eladio Fuente. Gus shows up at Don Eladio's place like he's ready to make peace, not war. He brings a fancy bottle of tequila, Zafiro Anejo, mind you.
Botella es una obra de arte. Es perfección.
This wasn't just any bottle of tequila, though. It was a trap. Gus wasn't looking to bond over shots. Here's where it gets really cold. Gus doesn't just poison Don Eladio. Nope, he poisons the whole dang party. And get this, he drinks it too. That's right, Gus is sitting there sipping the same poison tequila as everyone else, risking his own life just to make sure no one gets suspicious. Talk about commitment to the cause. The others are laughing, joking, thinking everything's fine, and Gus is just there, cool as a cucumber, waiting for the poison to do its work. At this point, you know Gus is a villain in a class of his own. He took permission to use the restroom and used this opportunity to vomit the poison before it had a serious effect on him. And then, as the poison starts kicking in and people start dropping like flies, Gus doesn't even break a sweat. The look on Don Eladio's face says it all. He cannot believe what just happened. He was not only dying, his entire empire was dying with him. Don Eladio is dead. His entire crew is gone, and Gus is still standing, looking like he just finished a business meeting.
Don Eladio está muerto!
What makes Gus so scary is that he doesn't even seem to enjoy it until he goes to rub it in the face of his arch-enemy, Hector Salamanca.
This young man. Do you remember him?
So far, Gus has managed to do all this without ever getting his hands dirty. He's the type of villain who'd have a cup of coffee before stepping over a body and not bat an eye. But here's where it gets next level chilling. Gus soon shows us he could be a cold-blooded killer when he kills Victor, one of his crew. Despite this being the most bloody scene in the series, the expression on Gus's face was blank. Now, poor Victor had been loyal, but you know how it goes. It only takes one mistake to end up dead. This scene was a turning point for Walter. Never had he been so terrified, and now he was sure Gus was going to kill him. It was only a matter of time, except he killed Gus first. But how was he ever going to eliminate such an evil genius? Gus had it all planned, but he didn't foresee the beast that would rise in Walter.
I am not in danger, Skylar. I am the danger.
Walter White, who started as a timid chemistry teacher, slowly transformed into the Heisenberg we all love to hate. Gus, in a way, was the one who pushed Walter over the edge. He forced Walt to stop being so nice and start thinking like a real criminal. And honestly, it was the best thing that could have happened for Walt's ego, even if it meant him losing his soul in the process. The monster Gus created was the man who took him out. Gus went out spectacularly. Sure, he was blown to bits with Hector Salamanca in a truly epic showdown. But the man had some satisfaction. In those final moments as the explosion went off, Gus knew that Hector wasn't going to walk away from that either. He must have been satisfied knowing that his worst enemy, the man who shot his friend, died with him that day. There could be no better end to a villain like Gus Fring. Even in his last moments, he went out looking sharp. If you enjoyed this video, then you want to see the many times Walter should have given up on his trusty but disastrous partner, Jesse Pinkman. Click here to watch it.